Hey Virgo, your visual presence is currently dismantling someone's entire composure, isn't it? Not because you posted anything trying to get attention, but because your natural way of existing in images is hitting them with force they weren't prepared for, making them scroll back through your photos obsessively, zooming in on details, studying your expressions, analyzing backgrounds for clues about your life. And they're caught in this consuming loop where they keep returning to look at you again, despite knowing they're being ridiculous, despite recognizing this obsession is disproportionate to actual relationship you have. And now they're battling themselves about whether to actually call you or whether that would reveal just how deeply affected they are by simply seeing you. Let me decode what's igniting in the visual fixation patterns surrounding your existence right now. The first absolutely electric thing breaking through is specific photo or set of photos recently posted is creating havoc in their nervous system. You're probably completely unaware of the impact. Maybe you posted casual selfie, maybe someone tagged you in group photo, maybe you updated profile picture without thinking much about it. But whatever images went up have triggered full scale obsession in this person. You might be looking particularly attractive in ways you don't even realize. Lighting, catching you perfectly, angle, showing you at your best, expression, revealing something about your personality that's making them insane with curiosity. And they're now trapped analyzing these photos like they contain encrypted messages about who you are and whether you could ever want them back. Here's the visceral truth about what you're experiencing, even though you don't know it yet. They're comparing current photos to old ones looking for changes. You're probably being subjected to forensic analysis where they're scrolling through your entire photo history, tracking how you've evolved, noticing you look happier, healthier, or more confident, studying whether you seem single or coupled based on who appears in recent images. You might be making them spiral because visual evidence suggests you're thriving without them or moving on or becoming even more attractive than when they knew you. And that progression visible through your photos is creating panic that they're missing their window, that you're becoming too good for them, that they need to act now before you're completely out of reach. What's detonating in the obsession acceleration zones is your photos are showing them life they're not part of. You're probably posting images of activities, places, people that reveal how full your existence is without them, and that exclusion is driving them crazy. You might be looking genuinely happy in ways that make them wonder if they even cross your mind anymore. And seeing visual proof that you're living well, that you're surrounded by other people, that you're out experiencing things is making them feel like they're on outside looking in, creating desperate urge to call you just to reestablish connection, to remind you they exist, to interrupt your apparently thriving life with their presence. This reflection demands you examine whether you've been unconsciously curating images that project specific narrative is less than has shown, zero hash is greater than, and whether part of you knew exactly who would see them and how they'd react, or whether you're genuinely just living your life and documenting it without strategic intent about who's watching. You're probably being obsessed over because they're noticing details in your photos that reveal your personality. You might have books visible in background, art on your walls, specific locations you frequent, clothing choices that telegraph your taste, and they're building psychological profile from these environmental clues. You could be unintentionally showing them who you are through what surrounds you. And that information is making them feel like they know you intimately, even if you've barely spoken, creating false sense of connection that's making them believe. Calling you would continue conversation they've been having with your images rather than initiating conversation you haven't actually started. What's also combusting is specific expression you have in recent photo is haunting them. You're probably captured mid-laugh or looking directly at camera with particular intensity or caught in unguarded moment that reveals something authentic. And that glimpse of real you rather than performed you is what's created of obsession. You might be showing vulnerability or confidence or playfulness that's making them desperate to experience you in person rather than through screen. And that hunger to be in your actual presence rather than just consuming your image is what's making them consider calling, despite all the reasons they've been telling themselves to maintain distance. What's threading through the photo fixation is they're imagining scenarios with you based on what they see. You're probably appearing in settings that trigger their fantasy life, beach photo making them imagine vacation together, dressed up photo making them picture taking you on date, casual home photo making them envision domestic intimacy. And your images are becoming launching points for elaborate daydreams about what being with you would be like. You might be unknowingly providing content for mental movies they're creating, where they cast themselves as person beside you in frame, as photographer capturing those moments, as reason you're smiling that way, and those imagined scenarios are making the desire to make fantasy real through actual contact almost unbearable. You're probably being analyzed for evidence about your relationship status. You might be posting photos that are deliberately or accidentally ambiguous. No obvious partner visible, but also no clear signals you're available. Captions that could be interpreted multiple ways. And they're dissecting every detail, trying to determine if calling you would be welcomed or if they'd be interrupting something. You could be driving them insane with uncertainty, and that not knowing is actually intensifying obsession because human brains hate uncertainty. So they're filling gaps with speculation that makes them more invested in finding out truth than they would be if your status were obvious. What's particularly intense about what I'm witnessing is they're saving your photos. You're probably being collected in their camera roll, screenshotted, maybe even set as wallpaper where they see you constantly. And that level of digital hoarding of your image is revealing depth of fixation that goes beyond casual interest. You might be literally always visible to them, creating constant reinforcement of attraction, constant reminder of what they want, and that sustained exposure is making it harder and harder for them to maintain restraint about reaching out because they're marinating in your presence visually, even when you're physically absent. This reflection demands you examine whether you're comfortable with intensity of attention your images are generating, and whether discovering that someone is this obsessed with your photos would feel flattering or violating, because that reaction is important data about whether you'd actually want contact from this person or whether their fixation is already crossing boundaries you'd want to enforce. You're probably being compared to other people they're seeing or considering. You might be appearing in their mind alongside other options, and your photos are winning that comparison, making everyone else seem less interesting, less attractive, less worth pursuing. You could be inadvertently eliminating their interest in other people through sheer visual impact. And that displacement of attention from available people to you specifically is creating pressure to act, because they're recognizing that until they resolve whatever they feel about you, they can't fully invest anywhere else. What's also erupting is they're showing your photos to their friends. You're probably being discussed in their circle. Look at this person. Aren't they gorgeous? Should I reach out? What would I even say? And their friends are either encouraging them or warning them, depending on history and circumstances. You might be subject of debate where people who care about this person are weighing in on whether pursuing you is a good idea, and that external input is influencing whether they'll actually call, but it's also intensifying their focus on you, because talking about you makes you more real, more important, more worth the risk. The obsession manifestation patterns suggest they're stalking your photo activity timing. You're probably being monitored for when you post, how often, what times of day, and they're building understanding of your patterns. You might have someone who knows your schedule based on when images appear, who's timing their own social media usage to maximize chances of seeing your content immediately. And that level of attention to your digital rhythms is revealing just how central you've become to their daily awareness, even though you're not in actual contact. What's significant is they're dying to call specifically rather than message. You're probably going to receive phone call if they work up courage, because they want to hear your voice, want real time interaction, want to move beyond asynchronous digital communication to actual conversation. You might be dealing with someone who's romanticizing the phone call as less than has home. Zero hash is greater than imagining how your voice will sound, what you'll say, whether you'll be happy to hear from them. And that specific fantasy about verbal rather than written contact is revealing that they want intimacy that texting can't provide. Connection that requires you to respond in moment rather than having time to craft perfect response. This reflection demands you examine how you feel about receiving unexpected call from this person, and whether you'd actually answer or whether you'd let it go to voicemail to buy yourself time to decide how to respond. Because your gut reaction to imagining their name appearing on your screen is telling you what you actually feel beneath any confusion or ambivalence. Um, you're probably looking particularly confident or self possessed in recent photos. You might be projecting energy of someone who's doing well, who's over past drama, who's moved forward. And that visual evidence of your evolution is creating urgency in them because they're realizing that the person they knew isn't the person you are now. You could be appearing as upgraded version, and they're panicking that if they don't act soon, you'll evolve past being interested in them, that they're running out of time to secure your attention before you become too advanced for a relationship with them to even be viable. What I'm witnessing in the call probability zones is March timing is significant. You're probably approaching or in period where they've given themselves deadline, told themselves they'd reach out by end of month, decided spring is new beginning, using change of season as excuse to reconnect. You might be receiving contact soon. And whether that manifests as actual call or chickens out into text message is going to depend on how brave they're feeling when moment comes. But the internal pressure they're experiencing is building towards some form of outreach because obsession has reached a point where not acting feels worse than risking rejection. So, as you go about your life posting images without realizing they're creating chaos in someone's internal world, understand that your visual presence has power you're not wielding consciously. You're probably just sharing moments that matter to you, documenting your life for your own reasons, and the fact that someone is spiraling over those images says more about their state of mind than about any intent on your part. Your pictures have them obsessing. They're dying to call you. March might be when they finally do. And when your phone rings, when you see their name, you're going to have to decide in that moment whether you want to answer, whether their attention feels good or invasive, whether you've been hoping they'd reach out or wishing they'd leave you alone. And that split second decision about whether to pick up is going to reveal what you actually feel beneath any story you've been telling yourself about being over it or not caring. They're looking at you, they can't stop looking at you, and soon they're going to try to make looking at images into actually seeing you, into hearing your voice, into having your attention, into being part of your life instead of just observer of your documented life. The call is coming. Be ready to decide what you want when it does.